on board today. All right, guys, here we are live. I'm really excited about this one. It's Thursday again. Around comes another week. And today I reached out to a fabulous client of mine. I've also got a little bit of a girl crush, I must admit, with Melanie McVean. Now, Melanie is not just a client. She is leading the most incredible passion-led life that, I've always aspired to. I think it's brilliant. Welcome, Melanie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Melanie's joining us from Timor-Leste. Leste, is it? Leste.
Leste. Yeah, Leste.
Thank you for that. So from Timor. So I'm just going to start off. I'm really excited that she's here, but I want you all to understand a little bit about who she is, because Melanie's got quite a bio here. She's the co-founder, CEO and CFO and customer experience manager at No Pong, one of, if not Australia's fastest growing deodorant brands. Now, I've been using No Pong for a number of years now, and I absolutely love it. And I always give it as little gifts to family and to friends.
Thank you.
So it's a fabulous brand. And we'll get into that later, how that all started. But you're also a passionate registered midwife, clinical educator, international board certified lactation consultant, and advocate for women's health. And that is why, obviously, you're in Timor. So bringing this to life, in addition to running No Pong, she also works in a leadership role for an NGO in Timor-Leste, leading a team that is focused on improving the education system and clinical care at the National Hospital, and in turn improving patient outcomes, which is incredible. This train the trainer and mentorship approach aims to make this higher standard of education sustainable. Now, I've done basic train the trainer stuff in my years of running hotels when I did hotel management, and so I understand how important it is, and I just love what you're doing in that respect. You are a natural-born leader. You apply science and evidence-based approach combined with your degree in neuropsychology to deliver great outcomes for both customers, patients, and her teams. How does it sound when you hear that read back to you?
It sounds, it's a bit overwhelming, but it's all true. So, I guess you just kind of don't think about it when you're just going around your daily life doing all those things.
Exactly right. So that's I love reading that out to people, because you kind of have to sit there. You're forced to sit there and listen to all these fabulous, achievements that you've made and things that you've, brought to the table. So well done. So let's have a little chat about where this all started. Now, I'm happy for you. I mean, No Pong obviously is the brand that I'm familiar with, that I interact with, but I know there's so much more to you than just that brand. So where did all of this start? Where did you first get that passion for either, helping or using your midwifery? Where did it all start in your head?
Oh, it all started, well, I mean, when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a midwife. When I grew up, I wanted to deliver babies. That's what I wanted to do. And, a 4-year-old child telling people they were going to deliver babies when they were older. And that kind of, that never left. It stayed with me. And I grew up in Canada, and midwifery is a little bit different in Canada than it is in Australia. And so it's a different sort of program. It's a primary care profession. And in that program, when I finally got there after my neuropsychology, they allow an elective. And so for my elective, I decided to go to Botswana and work in a hospital over there with a girlfriend of mine. And that basically just changed. That was the game changer for me. Just to work in that, have those experiences, and you just work in such a different way. Learn how to work it with really low resources, but still give amazing care. And I think that for me was the eye opener. It's difficult. It's difficult to give amazing care with low resources, but it's very, very, very possible. And so that kind of started this whole journey. I met my husband and partner on that trip. actually. And so
really, I didn't realize that's where you guys met.
Yeah, well, we actually met in South Africa afterwards. So Laura and I finished, and then I had 2 weeks to travel before I had to be back in Canada. And Chris and I met through surfing, funny enough.
Yep.
In South Africa. And I guess that's, I mean, women's health has always been huge in my life. I'm a woman and but I also work in the space, and I can see what a difference it makes. And so they, I don't know. I think it all just kind of started from there, and then grew, and then having the international life has changed it all as well. So
that's right. So from Botswana, so you were there, you did that, you finished, that time in Botswana.
Yep.
What happened after that? Did you go back to Canada? Did you go back to Australia? Did you keep traveling? What happened?
So I went back to Canada, and because I still had a little bit more, we had a clerkship, like we do an internship in Canada. So I had that, and Chris and I kept in touch, and I took some time after I finished my internship to go and hang out with Chris in Australia for a little bit. So that was my introduction to Australia. And then we decided to keep our relationship going, but I really wanted to go back and work in Canada. So I went back to Canada and kind of solidified my midwifery over there, because like I said, it's a different approach. Yeah. They have something similar in Australia, but it's just a different profession. And then after 2 years over there, I moved back to Australia and moved to Sydney with Chris, and we continued the journey there.
So how soon after that, and having finished the midwifery and all of that, did the idea of No Pong come up?
So I started playing around and making my own products probably about 3 years after I moved to Sydney. And it came out of the idea of I wanted to know what I was putting in and on my body.
Yeah.
So it came from that, just making healthy choices, not always making healthy choices, not always making perfect choices, but just being more conscious, being more aware of it. That to me was really important. And part of the midwifery philosophy is about informed choice. Yeah. And so you can make those choices, but you have to have all the information. And so it's different from informed consent. It's actually a choice. It's not you're consenting to something, you're making that choice yourself. And I really believe that people should be empowered to make their own choices. And so for me, that's where it came from. It just came from wanting to do that. So I started making a few things around the house. Chris used to make fun of me a little bit, I'm going to be honest. And including my own deodorant. And I was probably making it for about 1.5 years before Chris tried it. And that's when the idea of the business started.
Because he saw the potential, right? Mr. Business, he's such an entrepreneur, isn't he? Like it's that potential of, actually, I think we have something here.
It's true. We were in Java, and he actually was sneaking it. I didn't even know he was using my deodorant, because he'd run out of his own. And so he was using it on the side and had worn the same t-shirt for 3 days in a row. And I was like, okay, honey, I know we're in Java, but you're wearing the same shirt again. And he's like, no, it doesn't smell. I've been using your deodorant. And he's like, try it. So I smelled it. It didn't smell. And he was like, yeah, we need to share this with people. This is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it went from, just making a bit of the paste and the concoction in your house to then what happened? Like, how did you initiate that? How did you know what the next steps were and what you had to do?
Well, a few things. I mean, there's regulations and things you have to look into. So we just did lots of research. As you know, Chris is quite business minded. So a lot of these things, he has had businesses in the past and kind of worked on a few startups that didn't really go anywhere. And so we had a lot of lessons from those as to what to do and what not to do. So in the beginning, we we wanted to make sure that people actually wanted it. We didn't want to make a product that nobody wanted. And so we just put out a Facebook post to friends and family without spending any money and said, we're thinking about doing this business. Would anybody be interested? And I think I had 50 orders within that day. So we had
that
made a
viability study. That was a viability study, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Free. I hadn't made anything. So I made those. So I made those orders, and then we got feedback on them and iterated. And then I think basically from the idea of making the business to starting the business, it was 3 months. And where we started selling online. Yeah, it was all, but then in the beginning, we still made to order, because I didn't want to put a lot of investment in a business if it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I would come home from my shifts at, the hospital and make 100 No Pong, and Chris and I'd be up all night. And it was, we just did it all ourselves.
Crazy. Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good segue then. So you did it all yourselves. How long did you do it all yourself before you realized you actually needed to scale this and get help?
So it's interesting. We actually probably scaled before some people would have. And the reason we did that was because I took a position in Tanzania. So we were living in Sydney. I'd been there for 5 years, and I really, wanted to go back to what my original goal was. And it was always the plan. And I found just a really good position where I could go and work as a midwifery specialist in a tiny hospital in the middle of nowhere in Tanzania. And so we were forced into, okay, what do we do now? And so we found some contract manufacturers and went through lots of iterations and made sure that they could make No Pong the way we make No Pong. And found a small company to help us with the shipping of it. And so that was in September of 2015. And so we started the business in May, and by September we had already outsourced those two parts.
Amazing. Amazing. So it's just, it's really, and I remember interviewing Chris about this about 3 years ago,
that's right.
and just from his business mind, yours is such a totally different story. And I love the two, just it's kind of like the yin and the yang with you two, It really is.
We complement each other.
You complement each other. He's so business, but understanding sort of that the decisions that had to be made at what point to make sure that it was in line with your values still in the way that you would normally do it, but being able to then let go. So a lot of my business, is about you've got to let go to grow, right?
Yes.
If you don't let go, you can't grow. You can't hold it all inside yourself. You can't keep managing it all yourself. You've got to give some things away. So that's a big lesson. You had to trust, and you had to be sure that you had the right people in place to be able to then move it on and be able to, not worry about it so much.
Yeah. Oh, you still worry. You still
worry.
And I think, like you know as well, in those early days, you don't know what you don't know. And so the businesses we worked with then were great at the time, but now we work with different businesses, and we have processes in place. So we have aligned values with those businesses. So it makes it easier. And you just have so many lessons learned along the way.
Well, that was my next question. So what are some of the mistakes that you made that then created the lessons that you've learned to be able to move on?
I wouldn't say they were mistakes. I think it's all a learning process. And, but I think in the beginning we did what we could and what we knew. And, I think the learnings, like I said, is finding businesses that your values align with, because when everything is working well, it's great. No one has any issues, but it's when you have those challenges that you really kind of see what other businesses are about. And if you know from the get-go that they're aligned with your values, it's so much easier to work through those challenges.
Yeah, and I think, we can share that, we've been working together for a number of years now, and, there's been lots of ups and downs and changes, and we've, had one virtual, and we started out obviously with one virtual assistant. I can't believe this, just with one person that you trusted, and over the timeline of that person working, then systems change, managers change, things change. They might just fall off slightly, little hiccups along the way. But you're right, without knowing that we could work together quite easily on this, and that you had processes in place for managing that we supported, then it wouldn't work, and I think the other thing is it's the level of care and investment that your partners have in what you're doing as well. Like we're so invested, our girls are so invested in working with you because you invest back into them, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, your team, our team.
Yeah, your team.
Like yours and my team.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And, that was a huge learning as well, bringing our first virtual elf on. And now, she's still with us. Yeah. And we learned so much because the whole business was in our heads. All my customer service was in my head because from years of working in hotels and restaurants and stores, and that was just in my head. And so getting all of that into processes that was, I think, the challenge. But
I think it's everybody's challenge. That's that is the one piece. I think it's the one roadblock. It's the one thing that stops people from actually taking that step to letting go properly, because actually, like, the good thing with you and with Chris, is that you have basically, you're about that, train the trainer sort of methodology, right? It's about, if you invest in good training from the very beginning and you take people through a step-by-step and everything's there and it's basically laid out for them, then the end result is that you don't go back to it once you've shown them what to do, because they get it the first time, right? Or they get it during that process. A lot of people don't do that, and they don't know how to do that well.
Yeah, and then it's documenting it, and so they always have something to refer back to. It's also not doing it for. I think so. It's so much easier if someone asks you a question instead of taking the time to explain it, to just do it yourself, especially as a business owner. I'll just do it myself. But I think that's the thing in the beginning. That's probably one of the lessons learned is, taking that time to really explain why as well, not just how or what to do, but why. And then really bringing your team on that journey, and it gets so much easier. In the beginning, the first employee or first team, it was hard. It's hard.
I remember that, it really was tough. Like, it was such a learning process, and having to share, like you said, having to basically let go of what you had created. It's like your little baby, and you're having to let go of that to someone else and hope that they're going to respond in the same way that you do, Yeah.
And they're not. No one's going to. But over time, I think the team now really does, because we've put values in. We have sessions around. We always talk about our values, and everyone understands now, and works really, really well. And now that there's a whole team, it's a whole team culture, and it's so worth it. It's just once you get past that first hurdle.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. So. Just sharing with everybody, Melanie and No Pong started off with one person doing customer service. So we're now up to 4 or 3.
We have 3, but plus we have 3 other.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, so test, yes. So customer service, we have 3. But yes,
that's right. And then you've got bookkeeper. Yeah. So, and now you've not only got the Australian market covered, you've branched out to Canada.
Yes, yeah. So we decided to go back to my roots and and open the business in Canada as well. So we have the Australian and Canadian businesses, and then the team, we slightly segregate them, but they pretty much work across both businesses, which is really good.
Yeah, look, it's fabulous. And I think, anybody can really have a look at the way that you've done that and evolved the business. It's been such a great progression, from where you started and the way that you did it and the values and the considerations that you made through it to get to where you are now. I think your scaling efforts have been fabulous in that it's been a stage scaling, right? Like, it hasn't just been, let's just throw everything into one place and just see how we go. It's been so considered, And
we didn't.
I think that's how you work your life anyway, but.
But we didn't want to, grow bigger than we could handle. And we just really wanted to make sure that everything was sustainable and scalable. And so that sometimes means growing a bit slower and doing it right the first time rather than just going, gangbusters and then being completely overwhelmed. And then not being able to give that really, really important customer love, which is our number one value.
Which is your number one value. But I think also it doesn't mean, and I think businesses need to understand this, that the fact that you're not actually going into that sooner than later isn't meaning that you're not preparing yourself to do so. And so I think it's really important that businesses, that's my number one value is education. It's really important for me that a business, before they start to grow their team, they understand all of the things that need to be in place before they even take that step. And your business is always an example that I use to other businesses to sort of say, they took 4 weeks of actually onboarding their first VA.
Well, I think it might have been longer.
I think
it was.
A couple of months just to, to actually, you weren't getting that VA answering the tickets directly straight up. You were getting them to piggyback off you to, basically to test them, to see what their response would be before you actually went live with them doing that. And so I think, businesses really, I think they struggle with that. They think that they can just bring that team member on and straight away they're going to be able to fit in place without that pre-work. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, especially, if you, but that's with any job, you want people to sound like your brand voice. And for me, it's a reflection. Our team is a reflection of us as a business. And so I think really investing that time is so important. And in the beginning, because it was all in our heads, we didn't have anything written down. It took a long time, and she was amazing through it all, and she's still with us. But it's gotten easier, I have to say. Our last member that we brought on, she, I think, was starting to answer customers maybe within the second or third week, and with close monitoring. But because we have all of these processes in place now.
That's right. It makes it easier every time, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So obviously outsourcing is, a super big part of your model to allow you to do the real work that you're wanting to do, that you're passionate about. So talk to us about that. What are you currently doing at the moment? What is outsourcing and sort of having No Pong managed to an extent allowing you to then do?
Yeah. So for me, one of my passions, as I've said, is women's health, but not just that, about reducing maternal and fetal mortality through education. Because I think, like with you as well, education is just a huge part. And some of us we're lucky to come from countries that education is not only there, but it's expected and it's a right. And other places are just starting to figure that out. And so I work with an NGO over here, and I'm actually the lead right now. And we work with education in the hospital, as well as expanding out to the whole country, and more focused on nursing and midwifery education. But right now as well, during these crazy times we're in, we have stepped up that role and are working in a lot around COVID-19 and isolation and the policy and all of that goes along with it. So we're just supporting where we can.
Amazing. So at the moment, you obviously started out with sort of how many hospitals are there in Timor that you're working with?
Well, so there's one major national hospital, and they are our closest partner, and then there's 5 referral hospitals, and so right now we only work with 2 of them, but we are expanding with those, but supporting with the Ministry of Health.
Yeah, amazing. And so, just that it's almost that empowerment, empowerment model, isn't it? It's empowering the midwives and the staff to actually learn a better way of, saving these kids during childbirth and the mothers during childbirth. I love that,
Yeah, and I think you only know what you know, and so sometimes it just takes, a different way, showing a different way of doing things, and so that's what we're trying to do, and it's working. I would say the nurses and the midwives at the hospital here, they're amazing, and they work with, as I said, such lower resources than what we have in other countries, and they really are focused on giving good care, and so that to me is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just having those 2 businesses, really, because they're both it's 2 businesses that you're a part of, just the overlap in those would be huge. The overlap in the way that you would present yourself in either business, the lessons out of those, it's coming back again to the values, it's coming back to. And this is what I was trying to talk to someone about the other day. It's a passion-led life, or leading that passion life is really about leading to your values. It's about what is it that's so important to you, and picking those up and doing something that actually follows those values. So many of us don't do that.
Yeah, it's really, it is funny because the organization, I'm not going to name them, but that I work for, they have amazing values. And when I started working with them, it was one of the questions was around the values and how you would just demonstrate them. And to me, they fit with me. Like, it was so easy because I was like, oh, these are already my personal values, which is great. And then as a business, I've learned so much from that organization and in the way that they are a values-led organization. And so now that has helped transform the way we run No Pong. And it just changes your team culture if you have really strong values and everyone is held accountable to those values. So including Chris and myself. So if anyone finds that someone else isn't doing something, we always bring it back to the values. And as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, starting to hand over to a team, especially when you're starting, I think that's the way you make sure that your mission is continued. Because if you say, well, I want them to do it the way I would do it. Well, why do you do it the way you do it? You do it that way because those are your values. So bring that into your business and share the why and share all of those, and then your team will do it as well. So I don't know. I think it works.
That's so true. No, look, I've got 30 girls, in the Philippines. And, it's similar to what you're doing at the moment, because you're having to go into a completely different culture. It could be completely different values because it's very religious. It's very, which I'm not. But I think religion and not doesn't mean that you can't still be a family and, have that connection. And the one big thing that I've always said about my business, and I've been running for 11 years now, and I've always said, I am not here for volume. I am here for quality of connection and relationships with both my clients and the girls that I bring on board. I don't want to get so big that I have 120 girls that I'm managing and I don't have a relationship with any of them, and same with my clients. I don't want to have 600 clients that I never actually have a connection with. It's as simple as whenever you pay my invoices, you let me know that you've paid, and I feel like I can connect with you then and go, hey, thank you, how's things?
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's that simple transaction, and I just, our number one value for Virtual L's is family. That's what I've always, because in the Philippines, family is their number one value. And so for me, I said, well, for me, that makes sense. If I can have our number one value is family, then they can relate to that. And it's something that is the same in both of our cultures and connection. It's a great connection. So it's little things like that. And, VAs want to come and work with us because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think the way you do it as well is really great for us. You're like an extension, when we are having positive times or challenges with our team, we share them with you and we brainstorm together, and then you have the background support as well. And because we run our businesses with similar values, it's just easier, and it's like an extension of the team. It's really good.
No, I look, and I love it as well. And I think, the importance for me is that, we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning and evolving and moving forward. There's always that momentum forward. You can't ever just feel stagnant in something or take something for granted, because the minute you do, then it's no longer there. And that's, what I've learned a lot. You lose something if you take it for granted.
Which is one of our values, actually. We stole it from Amazon, though. But it's always day one, in that, never should you say, oh, that's the way we've always done that, so this is the way. We always have to be moving forward and thinking about better ways to show that customer love, or be efficient and show excellence. So
I love that. That's brilliant. So I was just about to say to you, all right, what advice would you give to people that are wanting to lead that passion-led life? What's some things that they can walk away with today after listening to this?
I think you can't do it alone. I mean, so especially if you if you have a job or a business and you need help, you need people around you. My husband is my number one supporter, and I'm his number one supporter, and we align our values and our passions as well. But right now he's doing what I want to do, and just being so supportive in that. And then the team as well, growing our team has been hard, but so worth it, because then it gives you the time to actually think about what your passions are and how you can make them come to life. We're living this really interesting life in my mind, but we did a lot of preparation a couple of years ago to get there. And so I think it takes time, but you need a team, you need support, you need people around you.
You need the lifter-uppers, as I say, the lifter-uppers and the ones that and that was the chat that I had with my friend Cheryl last week, the lifter-uppers, the people that are actually going to champion you even in the down times, so that, you've got a sounding board, you've got someone that you can talk to, and you've got that support, because it can be super lonely in business, right? It can be so lonely. And I certainly had a couple of years, the last 2 years actually, where I felt really isolated and I felt very lonely. But, through fault of my own, because I'd withdrawn and I'd pulled myself away from the support that was always there. It was just, you go through stages in your life. But now that I've stepped out of that and I've created this group and I've created this community where, everyone's supporting each other and lifting each other up and connecting again and being a part of something that is more than just you sitting in your little office running your business.
Yeah. And that reminds me as well, not just your support person and your lift-uppers, but mentors as well. So we've had a couple of mentors along the way that have really helped us. And then groups, I think we're both a part of a business group. And that to me has been amazing as well, just to connect with other business owners, because especially for us, because we're so remote, having that connection with other businesses has really made a difference for us.
Yeah, and you learn from other businesses. You learn from what they're doing. You learn from, either mistakes, lessons, things that you just talk about in normal conversation. That's why I love these conversations, because I always walk away with it with a couple of things, and I kind of just go, oh God, yes. Like even our conversation today, I really need to be pushing my values more out there.
I think
it out there more.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's, that's what people are attracted to, the values of, and if you are, that's how you, to my mind, how you live a passion-filled life, be really clear about that, and no exceptions really. But then surrounding yourself with others. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a fun ride.
I know. Well, I have to say, I absolutely love seeing your background, the beach, just I don't know. Like, I think, like, I'm quite a long way into my life now. I'm nearly 50. I've got teenage kids. My husband and I are feeling like at this point in our lives, we're a little bit trapped in where we are, because the kids, my daughter's year 10, nearly year 12, we'll just wait until they get through and finish high school. But we both have this yearning to do something more than just sit in Sydney, And I want to go to the Philippines. I want to explore more around how I can support there. And I think, it's just, it is a time in life. And like you said, you prepared for yourself a few years ago to be in this position now. Which I think is incredible, and it may not be that forever, but for now it's an interesting time for you, I think.
And it's a journey along the way. And we were in Sydney as well, and I had the same thoughts of, this isn't really what I had planned and signed up for, and luckily for me, Chris felt the same way. And so it was difficult. It's difficult to make that first step, just like it's difficult to hire your first team member. And you learn along the way. But I think,
And coming from Canada as well, my husband's Canadian actually, and so he constantly for the last 5 years has said, "Can we please move to Canada? Can we please?" He's got this idyllic, view of what life in Canada would be if we moved to Banff. He just wants to live in Banff and go skiing in the afternoon.
I think everyone would love to live in Banff.
Well, he reckons that it's going to happen. So I just, I'm the handbrake at the moment. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, look, Melanie, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. I know that you're really busy at the moment, but at the same time, I've been wanting to do this for quite a while. I really love what you're both doing. I love what what you stand for, that your interest in women's health and how you're making that happen. It's like this. I'm feeling like I'm going to do a series soon called "Extraordinary People," ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And nice. You would be top of my list. So
thank you.
Yeah. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I will pop the No Pong website address up on the screen so that people can go. Yeah. Guys, seriously, it is the simplest, easiest subscription you will ever do. It's like $7, a month to get this, tin of fantastic lemongrassy smelling paste that I love so much. And it really does work. It's incredible. So please go and check it out. And, just take the lessons and the learnings from this talk and start to think about what your values are and whether you're aligning yourself with them. But thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Kristy. It's been really great. And thank you for all your support through this as well.
Likewise. Take care. Enjoy your day.
You too. Thanks.